I will call the meeting to order. Please stand for the pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We'll have roll call, please.
Councilmember Waller?
Yes.
Salvi?
Yes.
Miller?
Yes.
Phillipson? Yes. Mayor Gay?
Yes. Citizen comments. If anyone would like to speak to the council, they should be here. I mean, there isn't anybody here, so we'll continue on. No public hearings. Reading and approval of minutes from February 8th.
I will move approval of the regular meeting minutes from February 8th.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Carried. And the February 8th condensed version of the minutes.
I'll move approval of the condensed version of the minutes from February 8th.
I will second.
Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Now we'll move approval of the consent agenda, which consists of audit of city bills, gambling reports from pretty much everybody, application for exempt permit from the Pheasants Forever and the Deer Hunters, and the November 10th library board minutes.
I'll second.
Any discussion or questions on any of the items?
Pheasants Forever, their permit was their banquet Saturday night. So we've just been all in arrears on this.
Well, it's like, we check with Aaron on that, it's like, what do? Do you make them cancel the event? Or do you sign,
Or we have a special meeting.
you could,
Okay.
you could maybe have I don't know that we've ever had a special meeting to do a gambling permit like that.
I'm just curious,
So I signed off on it and then we brought it to the council to approve it.
thank you.
Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. We have no petitions, requests, and communications. We have ordinances and resolution. A resolution approving the assignment and assumption of certain interest in and to developmental agreements and TIF notes. The collateral assignment of development agreements and TIF notes.
Yeah, so what this is and this was, the documents were done up by the TIF attorneys that we use, and they're recommending that it's okay to go ahead and do this, but basically the owners of the assisted living facility on 7th Street and the memory care unit, they're changing ownership, actually. I think one of the owners is leaving, the other one's buying the property. And so in order to do that, because there's a TIF agreement, we have to have the city council approve the assignment and assumption of the interests in the property. And I think you just did one for the apartment building.
Yeah, right next door.
That right next door. And so in this case, it was a matter of, I know Pete Warnes, I had talked to him actually last November, that he was buying out the project from one of the other partners who wanted to move on. So it's just paperwork is what it is.
And that's all on their cost then?
That's all on their costs, yep.
I'll move on this resolution.
I'll second.
Any further discussion? We'll have roll call vote on the resolution, please.
Councilmember Miller?
Yes.
Wallers?
Yes.
Salvi?
Yes.
Phillipson? Yes. Mayor Gay?
Yes. We have a resolution authorizing execution of MnDOT agency agreement for federal airport expenses reimbursement.
So we got a grant, extra grant, because of the American Recovery Act money, another $22,000 for the airport for operation and maintenance. I think actually last meeting I talked a little bit about we're getting some additional money for the airport. And what happens with the state of Minnesota is you approve the grant, but then they do what they call an agency agreement to oversee that money coming from the federal government. And that's all this is just a standard agreement to have them facilitate that money coming from the federal government.
I will move authorization to execute the Minnesota Department of Transportation Agency Agreement for Federal Airport Expense Reimbursement.
I will second.
Okay, I have one question. Can we use that, that money as part of the offset of the local share of the extension? Or
yeah,
what we did
so-
last time? I don't know, what was that?
So what we'll do is we budgeted money for operation and maintenance at the airport. So we can use this money to help offset that money, and then we can take that money and we can use it for our part of our share of that extra
So
project
is
that
this-
we just added.
Add into the 31,000? Is this an add-on?
This is the same part of that 31,000.
Oh, it's part of
So the 31,000 was, we got 9,000 under one program, we got this
This
22,000 under another program. This is just the agreement to be able to get this money through the
Okay.
federal government. But yeah, that's what the plan is.
Yeah, good, thank you. Any other discussion? We'll have a roll call vote on the resolution, please.
Councilmember Salvi,
Yes.
Miller,
Yes.
Wallers,
Yes.
Gullickson,
Yes.
Mayor Gise.
Yes. We have a resolution reestablishing the precincts and polling places.
Yeah, so you might remember that we did a resolution in December establishing the precincts and polling places for the upcoming election in November, but that was when we had 6 precincts and three polling places. And so because of the action that you took to redraw the lines and reduce down to 3 precincts, we're doing another resolution. So this is to establish the precincts and polling places with just 3 of them.
Okay. I have a question about, after our last meeting, the newspaper, I suppose it was shortly after our last meeting, and maybe it was that same day. It said in reference to the county, and they laid out the different county wards or county precincts, whatever you call them. And they were gonna, somebody was gonna do one precinct in Morris plus something in another precinct. We're not splitting precincts, are we, for
Okay.
county?
Yeah, so I know exactly what you're talking about. In precinct, is it 2, the south precinct? There's township land. It's inside that precinct.
That was all.
That's
what
all it is. They're taking Timmy
Oh.
Michelson's property, that's township land, and they're attaching it to one of their county commissioner districts, but it's
Yeah,
totally
yeah.
within one of our precincts.
It's that island.
Because when I read that, that's the first thing I thought is, well, they can't split a precinct.
Right.
And it's like, oh, there's land inside the city limits that's inside a precinct that actually is township land. So that's what they're doing, is
Okay.
they're taking that.
But that really wouldn't be in a, I
It-
know there's
tech-
precincts surrounding it, but,
But I think the way the lines are drawn, you know, because a precinct line is a precinct line, and, you know, so that property is within that line.
okay.
It's just, you know, and realistically, you know, I've looked at the possibility, originally when that property, when the annex property was done, that property was prohibited from being annexed into the city. I don't understand why. It's in the city limits. It is in the city limits. But it's township land. How that ever got left that way is beyond me. I know I did talk to Tim, because I grew up with him in my neighborhood, and he said the reason I refused to allow my land to be annexed in was because I didn't want the city controlling me, and I said, Our control line's out here. You're already controlled by us.
Right.
So we zone and control you anyway. It has nothing, you just don't pay property taxes in the city limit. You pay it in the township. And so I don't know that there's any mechanism right now to finally bring that into the city limits, but it should be brought into the city limits. It's in the city limits. It
How
should-
about the trailer court? Is that also
That's not in the city limits either.
down on 7th Street, or you get out there across from
K's.
Riley Brothers K's,
Yeah.
on the backside of the drive-in theater?
But they're actually outside of the city limits. You know, whereas Tim's inside the city limits. There's literally, I've never ever seen that before, where there's an island of township land inside the city limits. Yeah, it goes, the trailer court's outside the city
Yeah, it
limits.
goes right behind it.
Yep,
Yeah. And Riley's,
but that's, you know, and in the agreements, we weren't allowed to do anything with that property.
Do we
So, but-
take
but
care
that's
of
the
snow
answer
there,
to your
or do we have
question.
their own- Who takes care of the snow then in that trailer court?
They do,
They take care of their own,
Yep. or the township does.
okay?
So that's the answer to that question.
Okay, great, thank you.
Well, I can move on that resolution reestablishing the precincts and polling places.
I will second.
Any further discussion? We'll have roll call vote on the resolution, please.
Councilmember Waller,
Yes.
Salvi,
Yes.
Miller,
Yes.
Gullickson,
Yes.
Mayor Gay.
Yes. Resolution authorizing the updating of the city fee schedule for 2022.
Yeah, so this started because we had a question came up of whether or not we're gonna look at raising park fees. And typically that question will come up when we're gonna reorder envelopes for the park. And so we're in the process of needing to reorder new envelopes. So I went to the park board and asked them what they thought, and they recommended raising the fees just a little bit. And so then we got to talking about, was there any other fees that maybe we should take a look at? And one of the things that we realized was now we have the community center, and so we do rent that out, and we hadn't established, we have fees for it, but that wasn't part of the fee schedule. And then we talked about the shelters and the music center. The fees seemed to be a little bit low, $10, you know.
Yeah, $10.
And then the only other thing was, there were some fees with, the rental licensing program that we had already talked about and changed that weren't necessarily updated in the fee schedule. And so what we wanted to do is make sure any changes we made to fees were put into the fee schedule, and the fee schedule itself was updated so that everything is current in that fee schedule, and not having to go back and just change one thing or whatever. So that's the recommendation, is to approve a new fee schedule with those changes.
Okay, yeah, so the rental property parts that are highlighted, that's not necessarily changes, it's just added to the fee structure.
Well, they're changes that were made through a different process.
Yeah.
Because remember when they
Yeah.
came to us and asked us to look at the rental licensing fees.
I know even with the increase on the camping fees, it's still pretty darn reasonable. I know what the fees are for tips and amounts up there, and granted, you know, we have probably more amenities up at that campground, but even at that, it's still pretty reasonable when you look at $25. $100 for a whole week without electrical, that's pretty reasonable.
Yeah, and if you just do an incremental change, you know, because we don't change fees a lot. But it was a good chance to take a look at it. And then we'll be able to order the envelopes.
The community center rental, it's you have to pay all three of those if you're renting. You want the kitchen?
No,
and
there are people that rent out.
You can rent it each separately too.
Yep.
If you want the main dining area and the kitchen, it's the combination. It's not okay.
I was wondering, Blaine, on the solicitors, I see we have a fee there for 30-day solicitations and 1 year. What is an example of a solicitor? I guess, you know, a while back we had a discussion about those weekly food vendors, when they come into town, are they considered a solicitor?
No, there's,
not.
Reggie can probably answer that, because typically they go through law enforcement to,
Yeah, so the solicitors are the ones going door to door, knocking on everyone's door in the neighborhood, selling something or.
Oh, okay.
Girl Scout cookies.
and just as a quick note, I was asked whether or not Schwann's had a solicitor's license. And the answer is they don't go door to door. So they do not go door to door and try to sell something. If you want them to stop, you have to get them to stop. You know, and I didn't realize that, but it's like, no, you gotta call them and have them stop, or stop at the truck and, hey, can you stop by my house? Cause they don't go door to door. They have people that have listed that they go visit.
Okay, well, thanks for clearing that up. And I was just curious, I see dog license fees are $5 a year. Do we have a lot of licenses issued each year?
No, and actually, Stacy and I talked about that. One of the things that I haven't really had a chance to work on is every once in a while we'll do a maintenance ordinance where we'll pull up things that we notice that maybe need to be changed. And, dog licenses are one of those things where, yes, there's a law that's on the books that you're supposed to get a dog license. We don't have a dog catcher. We don't go after people. I don't think we ever issue a ticket if we find out somebody didn't have a dog license. And why we have it, I'm not quite sure. So it could be, we talked about just not having a fee, but in order to quit making people have licenses, we'd have to change the ordinance so we wouldn't require it. So it's one, and there's other things in the city code where, we just don't have the ability to go out. We could go out and do a sweep of the town and see how many dogs don't have licenses, and it'd probably be in the hundreds and hundreds and hundreds. And then at the same time, do you make all of those dog owners come in every single year to get a dog license? What would be the logistics of doing that? I don't.
The only thing you probably could do is move the length of time in between, like maybe every 3 years or.
Do a lifetime for $25 or
Yeah.
something.
Yeah, that would make, then you have to deal with it every year, kind of a thing.
But then, how do you get people to come in and get one?
Yeah.
But what's the
You know-
purpose of it?
Be a good job.
Well,
for
and
Reggie.
What's the purpose? Are you?
So that's ultimately the question is,
That's right.
why was it put into place? It was probably put into place because somebody complained because people had too many dogs or I think maybe originally it was put into place to protect the public because part of the dog licensing requirement is that dogs need to have vaccinations. And so then I know at the vet clinic, they do sell dog licenses there, but they're not gonna refuse to treat a dog doesn't have a license, and ideally, it comes back to, it probably would be a good thing that everybody had a dog license and every dog was vaccinated to protect the public, but how do you implement it? How do you go after it? The other thing I tell people is that if you have a dog license and we know who you are by the dog license, you'll get your dog back. They're gonna bring your dog back because they're not gonna bring your dog to a pound. They'd rather bring the dog back to you than to go through the whole process of dealing with the pound and eventually, euthanizing an animal and stuff like that. So realistically, it might be a good way to find your dog
And
if
the
you had one.
dog impoundment fee is $25 plus the license fee.
Plus a
So,
license.
so you're gonna get a license on that dog if
Right,
he gets
to
impounded.
get your dog back.
But
But
yeah,
then-
it would be to the homeowner, or the pet owner's benefit to have a dog license then, so
Yeah.
really if if some kid gets bit by a rabid dog, you can say,
Right.
well,
And that was ultimately my question is, does the city have a obligation in law to protect the public from rabid dogs? And I don't think there probably is any legal requirement to do that. But it's just one more of those things, if you look through all the codes and it's like, do we actually do this? Do we do that? Because You know, one of the things I've shared before, and I'll share again, is that we enforce our codes by complaint. We don't enforce our codes by actively going out and inspecting every code item that we have in the books, because we couldn't possibly do that. So typically, we'll get a dog complaint, barking dog or vicious dog or whatever, and then that dog will get impounded, and probably they'll pay a license then, you know, to get their dog back, if they come and get their dog back. Some people are dumping dogs, you know, because they don't want them anymore. But it's just something to think about.
You know, I wonder why you couldn't just do a lifetime,
You could.
a lifetime permit for the length of, because, you know, we all know dogs, some dogs' lifespan's longer than others.
Right.
Just, they get it once and done.
What is the, how many dogs can a person have?
As many as you want. We have no limit. And now, like in Breckenridge, you could have 3. And I remember,
If they're properly taken
and
care
if they have puppies, you can have them up to a certain point. They can, you know, you can have young ones with the mother, but, yeah, there's
But yeah, you're
there's no
right.
limit here.
You know, Stacy's got a lot better things to do than monitoring, you know.
Well, and we have no,
Licenses
I mean,
up to-
the nearest thing to a complaint on dogs was, you know, there is a daycare for dogs in town, which we don't prohibit, you know, and whether or not the dogs are causing a nuisance to their neighbor, that's really where you get involved. I've dealt more with dogs, you know, crapping on the neighbor's yard, than to be noisy, or to be, you guys might deal with noisy dogs, but yeah, and then I've been asked before, do you do anything with cats? And it's like, no, we don't do anything with cats. We barely do anything with dogs, but some places they do limit the number of dogs that you can have. And it would make sense to do that. The problem is, how do you enforce it? You know, and
Well, again, it'd be based on a complaint.
On a complaint.
Which, I don't know, I mean, that's, the reason you have some of that is if people complain that this house has 15 cats,
right.
then there's something.
Pretty
that
much,
says, you know,
pretty much every law we have was probably because of a complaint. You know, because there's some stuff, it's like, why do we even have this on the books? Because somebody came in and complained about it, and they passed a law to prohibit it. You know, junk cars is a good example, and we've done a lot with junk cars, you know, to the point where, you know, it's gotta be a running car if you're gonna be parking it somewhere, you know, and stuff like that, but, you know, it's a good exercise for us to go through and look at all of our codes and then come up with the ones that don't make sense, and every once in a while, I think Morris has codified its codes at least once in the near past, but cities from time to time will codify their codes. They'll actually have a company come in with the legal capability to look at every single one of your laws to see if they're legal and whether or not they should be gone, or, you know, to adjust them, to make them the right way. But, you know, for me, it's like, we deal with the complaints, and from time to time, we have to make changes, and we have. You know, because certain things, snow removal is a good example. We've adjusted a few things with that, and we might have some more suggestions after this last go around. Because this is, I'll talk about that in a minute, but.
Well, I guess if we're gonna keep that, not to beat that anymore, but if we're gonna keep that permit, why don't we just do a lifetime and make it $10, and it's good for the life of the animal? I know that, cause you know you're not gonna, people aren't coming in right now to renew it every year anyway, so just make it a lifetime, just change it and be done.
That's certainly something that this staff could look at and
Yep.
think about that.
Yeah, I'll go back and look at the code and just see, because normally the codes now are saying that, you know, you have to do this, and then the fee will be set by resolution. And whether or not it says anything about annually getting a license or a lifetime license, we might have to change the code to make it a lifetime. But that would make sense.
Be sure a lot easier.
Yep.
Okay, I will move approval of the resolution authorizing the updating of the city fee schedule for 2022.
I'll second.
Any further discussion? We'll have roll call vote on the resolution, please.
Councilmember Gullickson,
Yes.
Miller,
Yes.
Salvi,
Yes.
Wallers,
Yes.
Mayor Heath.
Yes. City manager's reports and recommendations, a motion to authorize starting process for solar on water treatment
Yeah, so
and wastewater plants.
So basically what I'm doing is I'm kind of feeling out if you're interested in us pursuing this further. And the one thing I will tell you is actually before I came into this meeting, I was in on a meeting with the Minnesota State Department of Commerce and Brian Herman from the university and a couple other people, because they're looking at doing a study on the feasibility of doing sustainability and energy and storage on wastewater plants. And so they're looking for potential projects to study, not necessarily building them, but to look at the potential for it. And this came up after I put all this stuff together for the city council. So they heard about Morris and they heard about all the things that we're doing here. And they're wondering if we'd be interested in participating with them. There's nothing that we have to do other than give them data on our wastewater plant. And actually, after our discussion, they talked about the possibility of looking at the water plant too, which is, yeah, that's, in my mind, that's a great thing for them to do, because we're good examples of a community that's interested in that stuff. And actually, I don't know if I talked a lot more about this, but there's a scholar from the University of Applied Science in Munster that's going to be coming in April, May, June. One of Professor Vedder's students who's graduated already and is working on some further things. He wants to come in and study our water treatment plant for efficiency, to see how it's put together, how it runs, and then he'll report back on what he's found, and that'll give us information about to use that facility the best way possible. Well, that ties into what these people are talking about too. And so realistically, what I'm saying is that we've talked about the potential of doing solar on our water plant and our sewer plant. And now the next thing that's starting to come into the light a lot is the potential for storage of energy that's produced. And the university is going to be doing a couple studies. And so what I'd like to do is I'd like to go back to Blue Horizon Energy and just talk with them a little bit more about what we would need to do, what information we would need to try to start putting together a project for each one of those facilities, knowing full well that there's already grant money available to potentially do some of that. And there's going to be a lot more grant money that's going to come out from the federal infrastructure package. And as a side note, I was on an email today with our engineers and the FAA. We're going to get $110,000 a year more for 5 years at our airport for capital improvements out of that new infrastructure package. So right now we get $150,000 a year that we can set aside for doing things like runways and stuff like that. We're allowed to keep 4 years worth. And now with that new package, they're going to give us an additional $110,000 a year for 5 years. So just there's money that's going to start coming out. And then we're looking at potential projects that we could use that on. One of the things we might be able to do is buy some equipment, buy a plow for clearing the runway and stuff like that, put up a building, store it there. But the same thing's happening with energy production, storage, and all those kind of things. And so I'm just looking for a motion from the council to give me some direction to start looking at this more, and then I'll go back to Blue Horizon. It's not gonna cost us any money if it ever gets to that point where we need to start looking at doing something like that. Then I'll come back to you. But the goal is to figure out what we would have to do to put solar on our plants with the potential of storage. And then we'll be ready when the time comes to do projects.
Blaine, I'm not all that familiar with Blue Horizon, so I guess I'm gonna apologize in advance if I don't seem like I'm all that familiar with them, but how are they connected? I mean, in
They're the ones
relation to
that did
like
our
an
solar.
Otter Tail or something like that, are they?
They did our solar.
So they specifically,
They're-
they're not an energy provider per se, they just specialize in solar panels?
No, they put up
installation?
solar panels and they're actually working right now with some cities that are looking at putting, solar energy production and storage on water plants.
So that's their
That's
forte.
what they do, yeah, that's what they do.
Specialty is, okay.
Yep,
And then with regards to our plant out there at the water treatment plant, is, I'm not familiar with the heating system that we have out there. Is this gonna be compatible? Is there anything special that we need to do to that? Cause we know it's just a recent build out there, so is it compatible? I mean, with solar, how would that integrate with?
so what I would say to you is that's what we wanna find out.
Okay,
So that's the next step, is for us to figure out what would a project look like. You know, it's a big energy user, you know, and then part of that would also be, you know, we have a long-term, it's like a 99-year lease with the university to have the plant on their property. And so if we're gonna site a solar array on there, is there enough room on the land that we have leased that we could do that? Would we need a little bit more? I mean, we don't know any of those answers.
okay.
So that's what this process is
All
to
right.
look at what would it take. You
Who's
know?
our energy provider at both of those facilities? Are they both on?
Otter Tail
Otter Tail?
Power.
On both of them?
Yep, yep,
Well, we're looking at spots to put solar, I mean, we're talking airport, and we got extra money coming in there.
right,
Is that something also?
yep.
That we'd be
Yeah,
looking
and
at?
yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that, because they specifically asked me about that. And I go, well, we didn't, you know, because that's Agrilite territory, but it's like, no, nobody's ever brought up solar at the airport, but,
Well, I'm
Yeah.
sure we don't use a lot there, but all the different garages and just.
right. So that is one of the things that we will take a look at.
I guess if we're looking and if we have funds coming in, and if we're able to use those funds just to, on the same burner or down the road, but yeah,
Yep.
just, we have obviously plenty of space to put some panels, I would think,
Right.
on the airport property.
Yeah, and you know, you could do some ground mounted ones, you know, that you know, like MnDOT Maintenance Garage has down there now, yeah.
Thank you.
So it's just looking into it further, you know, and you know, what I like to do is I like to go to you first and just get your thoughts and see what you wanna do, and then we'll go from there and move forward.
Or the facilities that we use a lot of electricity, I guess, if that would be city shop, or if
Yep.
there's other facilities of ours that we're not thinking of, that when we pay the monthly electric bill.
Yep.
to-
Yep,
I will move on a motion to authorize starting the process for solar on the water treatment and the wastewater plants.
No second.
Any further discussion on this? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. City manager newsletter.
just a couple things here. This is getting to be really squirrely with all the snow that we're getting, and so we did send out a lot of shoveling bills. There's some unhappy people. We towed 28 cars, so there's some unhappy people. And so I've talked to a few people. We've had a few people call in and complain, and you know, the car one, it's like, everybody should know. If you, actually yesterday, I was here, we had a holiday, but I met with a couple students at City Hall, and then I realized that we issued a code red alert. And so I went on the internet, and I posted a message on our Facebook page, and I posted a message on our city web page about the alert, but we still had people that didn't understand it. And this, actually, we did a 2-day alert because they knew it was gonna be bad, and it's gonna take them a couple days to clean it up. But with the snow shoveling, one of the things I would just share with you is that normally the complaint is that I did my own sidewalk or somebody did it for me. So you guys didn't do it, they did it. And anybody that lives here knows that we've been doing a lot of snow removal. I think I went through a whole tank of gas for my snow blower and stuff. And so really, realistically, I had a couple people that said, I have a vendor, they take care of the snow removal, so there's no way that you guys did snow removal for me. But a vendor is not gonna come and remove your snow for every inch of snow that is on that sidewalk. They're gonna decide when they're gonna come and do your sidewalk. And I think what happened is when we go out and we look at the city, because we did it twice after the 2 big alerts that we had, when we go out and we look at the city, they look at all the sidewalks and they determine which ones need to be cleared. And it could be that you're in between your vendor doing your job. I think that's what happened. I realistically think that that's what happened.
On your sidewalks, when they come down to the street or the curb or something like that, is that your responsibility to keep that open to the street,
Yep.
even though the plows it shut?
Yep, that's the homeowners.
Well,
I'm just curious. I'm just,
Sidewalk to the boulevard, to the street, what you're saying, Brian?
yeah.
Yeah.
well, I don't know that if you did your sidewalk in front of your house but didn't do that little sidewalk going to the street, I don't know that we'd ever send a vendor over to do that.
Well, I was just curious. I mean,
If it's just
sometimes
a-
that can really be tough.
Because that's,
Oh, yeah.
the public sidewalk is really the one that
Yeah.
goes straight through.
Right, that's your
That goes
little
from
private,
point- yep.
right to there. So yeah, okay, that wouldn't.
And I've had that question asked to me twice now, today, actually, whether or not they have to do that little, that's really for your purpose to get up
Well, I'm sure
to
the
your
mailman
side
would
From
appreciate
your
it.
house to the curb?
from the,
Otherwise, they gotta walk way around, the poor
Right.
mail carrier.
well, and
So whose responsibility is that, though? I mean, if the idea is to keep the sidewalks clear for safety, for walking, for accessibility, then in every corner, you're gonna have a pile of snow that you gotta climb over. I mean, who's
oh,
responsible?
the corners.
The corner ones you are.
The
I mean,
corners,
like if
yeah.
you come right out your house and
He-
go right to the street, you wouldn't have to do
Your,
that.
your little ones that go up to your house.
Yeah.
That you have
Oh.
that little one
It
that
goes
goes.
across the
Yeah.
boulevards.
I don't think you
Yeah.
have one.
Oh, no, okay,
Yeah.
I know, from the street.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
From the
that's what
sidewalk
you're
to the
talking
street.
about.
So, I don't think we mess with those.
No.
But, at the same time, then there's, the question was raised, well, what is the criteria for making the decision? And it's like, is it 1 inch? Is it 2 inch? Well, there really isn't, we don't go out with a ruler like with grass. Technically, there is a measurement. If your grass is longer and I think it's 6 or 8 inches, then, you're in violation of the city ordinance. But I've gone around and I've checked sidewalks before, and you can pretty much tell who did their sidewalks and who didn't. And it could be that that vendor never got to it yet, or that vendor decided, this isn't enough to warrant me coming and billing this person for that removal this time around. And it's, and they don't, we changed it to 2 days instead of 1 day, but they don't go out and check until they have the time to go out and check. So it's not gonna probably be on the 3rd day. If it's going into a weekend, they're not gonna do it on the weekend. So then, you kind of wait until Monday and stuff. But we did send out, 70 bills for doing sidewalks. And
Are we getting
and,
repeat offenders?
I would venture to guess there are.
You don't send you don't send a notice.
We're not required, it's the only thing that we do in city government where we're not required to give notice to the owner they're in violation first, because of the nature of ice and snow and.
Right.
And,
But when we tell the vendor that, 307 East 7th, you have to go clean it, and he goes and cleans it, and we get this, does he just go back and clean it?
Nope.
Okay, you have to tell him.
No, we
again?
have to give him a list and.
Okay,
And
so
then,
give him another list.
And then that vendor, if he goes to that house and it's done already, then he doesn't do anything and he doesn't get paid to
Right.
go visit the place. That's kind of the way it's set up
Yeah.
to do
No,
that.
it's pretty easy to see, just driving down, just looking down the sidewalk, okay, this guy's done, this
Right.
guy's done, not done, and that guy's done, and,
Well,
most of the time when you look at them, it's like, okay, snow blower, this one's not done, snow
Right.
blower, it's like, holy cow, be a neighbor. Now, you know me, that's my pet peeve.
Well, yeah.
Be a neighbor, just blow the neighbor out, and maybe he'll,
Yeah, especially if you
Make
know
you some
it's an
cookies.
elderly
But it's
person or
not the
whatever.
vendor's discretion. It's a list that's provided
It's a
from
list,
the
right?
Yeah.
City Hall or a
Yep.
Public Works Director. Here's the address and and if they are done, they don't get billed. If they're not done, they're gonna shovel it.
Right.
And they're gonna get billed.
No.
And for the
It's-
most part, you know, the one gal I talked to today, she understood that, you know, and she just, you know, you know, it's just really unfortunate that, you know, 95% or more of the people, they get to them right away. Everybody's been doing a really good job, but I can tell you, I'm getting tired of doing it. It's like every time I turn around, it's drifted in and then we had the one storm where if you never got to it right away, it melted and it turned to ice, and now your sidewalk's covered with ice. So at least once this year, I've gone out and I put ice melt on the entire sidewalk in front of my house because there's no way I was gonna get the ice off of it. You know, it just wouldn't come off, so.
Is the penalty or the fee for that, is it progressive? Does it, like, first,
I,
second offense?
yes.
Yeah, we just passed it.
It's in the fee schedule, actually, that
Yeah.
you'll see it in
Yeah.
the.
Yep. So that's, and I think I got one more call to make for today on towing vehicles, cause, and I don't get it, because everybody kinda knew this storm was coming. You know,
Yeah.
schools are closed, everything's closing down and stuff like that.
And if,
What, on
you
the
know-
vehicles, what are we getting, are they students, repeat offenders? We don't have any data to find out what kind of a group that's having the issue here? Are we having an issue of not having open spots from their landlords, or?
So this last one, we have about a handful of repeat offenders. So they got charged for the second citation for the snow alert. As for what group, it's kind of everyone. There's our college students, there's your general residents. A couple that I did talk to, I asked, like, did you know about this? Yep, but the residence only has so many parking spots for the vehicles. And this one that you recall was a student. I said, well, campus does have a spot for you to park, even though you live off campus. Well, I'm the only one in this group of friends that has a vehicle, so they drove back to the house. There are lots of options out there. I think people aren't taking them up.
all right,
Yeah, if you're a university student. Now, of course, if you live on the west side of town, you park your car in the campus, you gotta get a ride back home somehow, or walk, or whatever.
Transit.
Call transit. You know,
But we don't have a spot that.
we don't have one
The city
designated.
does not. We did up to the old, elementary school property years ago, but
when
I
it was
just-
open.
When it was
Yeah,
open,
When it was
yeah.
plowed. Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't,
if that makes sense for us to have a parking lot that could be designated.
well, I don't know where it'd be.
Well, you know what, the problem with that, especially if it's one of our parking lots, one of our public parking lots, is when are we gonna plow that? I mean, if we've got a bunch of cars in there and they're all snowed in and the snow is this deep around them, so whose responsibility is to get them out of there, because they have to get out of there.
Yeah.
And then we have to get that lot cleaned out for the next time we have a snowstorm on Friday,
Yeah.
you know?
I guess just looking at options.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I mean, that's a good thinking, but I just don't know where we'd put it.
Is there spots at the city garage? I mean, they're used plowing that out.
No,
the
because
west side? Okay,
yeah,
just
because
wondering.
they're constantly working in and out of that. You know, and what I would say is, in the scope of the number of vehicles in Morris, you know, you're talking 28 got towed.
Yeah, it's not bad.
You know, so everybody's figuring out where to go. You know, at one point, yeah, I'm not quite sure where the guy is that has the, that purchased the old Sunwood Inn, Prairie Inn, but, you know, he seemed like a pretty nice guy, and whether or not somebody like that would be interested in allowing people to park on the back lot side, but then you get into, like you were just talking about, who's gonna clear it off so people can go in there, and then, after they leave, you know, what happens, and
Well,
it's
and
just,
you got an issue with liability if something happens to that vehicle while it's sitting there
Right.
and it's on his property, you know? So that gets to be kinda dicey too.
yep.
I think we have to look after our own, which brings me up to a question. Are we towing tonight?
Yes.
Okay. I think that word definitely should get put out on Facebook or whatever, that, hey, this is remind us, this is a 2-day. I don't remember the last time we've had a 2-day
I don't know that we
snow
ever
emergency
had one.
and not cancel the second day, but obviously, it's pretty bad out there. Today is worse than yesterday, actually.
Well, and you talk about, we talked a little bit about, looking at city codes and maybe making adjustments to them and stuff. Because one of the questions that came up is, can you park on the city streets during the day? Because we're in a snow alert, and it says after midnight, you're not allowed to park on the streets. But I can
Yeah,
tell
we'll see
you,
if I'm told.
they're not gonna be ticketing and towing vehicles during the day. And so maybe what we need to do is tweak that language and just say, if a snow alert's called between the hours of midnight and 8 o'clock, I don't know what it would be, 8 o'clock in the morning, you're not allowed to park on the streets. But at the same time, what I tell people is, don't park on the streets when it's snowing. Because I remember going home yesterday, and they were plowing, well, they tried to keep all the roads open to keep ahead of it, and there's some cars that got plowed
Oh, they got
in,
plowed in, yeah.
that I looked at that and it's like, I would not want to be digging that out. Because when the road grader goes around you, and you have a pile that's 2.5 feet tall all the way around your vehicle, you're gonna have to try to get that vehicle out and get it moved. So it's like, the goal is to find a place to park off the street, especially during snowstorms, when it's snowing at all. And the wind went down, then it came back up again, so now everything's drifting back in again.
That'd be hard for a tow truck guy to get that car out that's got that big thing, but I imagine they do it, huh?
Yeah, I think they just drag them through it, and so then, so that's kind of where we're at with that, and if you hear of anybody, send them my way and I'll talk to them, and I've talked to a few people already. And the only other thing I would note on this is that I read in the newspaper, actually, I was kind of waiting to see the definitive answer, but it sounds like neither Tory Westrom or Jeff Backer are gonna be representing us.
Neither one?
Neither one. Tory's gonna be in a new Senate district, District 9, and is Jeff in the same one? He's in Traverse County, so Traverse County went that way, and so then we go in with Big Stone, Swift, Pope, a little bit of Douglas, and so then, as of right now, Tory got put in with Bill Ingebrigtsen, but Bill's not gonna run again anyway. And then the, who is it, Anderson? Paul Anderson will be our representative.
He's a good guy.
And as of right now, there is no senator in this district that they established, so there'll be a new.
Miller?
There'll be a new Democrat and a new, so I was trying to figure that out, and it's really hard to do. So I was glad the newspaper published that, that's kind of the way it worked out. And although they can move, they have to relocate 6 months prior to the election. So there will be people that will move
Pretty soon.
to get into the right spot so that they can continue representing that group that know them. So that's the only other thing I had, so.
We still have room to be piling our city snow where we're hauling to our
I think we do.
locations. Where do we all pile at?
I
Morse
think,
grain?
I think we're still out there. Yeah, I think we're on Green River Road, although there's gonna be a couple houses built there, probably this year. A little bit further down,
Fairgrounds?
the fairgrounds.
We don't utilize anything on the old elementary property anymore?
No. No, I think a lot of it goes out by Pomni Park, Green River Road.
I think, along with the snow removal, I'd like to make a suggestion. I think up and down Main Street, when we clean that, I think we need to look at cleaning off the sidewalks when we take the snow off that road, because it just ends up in where we park, because the poor people have to shovel it off, and then they shovel it to the road that's already clean.
Right.
And if we would, when we go to clean that, if we could, we don't have to go up in their nooks and crannies, and we just need to get the bulk of it gone. You don't have to get everything, but, you know, if we could get up there with the skid loaders and then get it to the road and then we plow it away and blow it and take it away, then we don't have them scooping it into the road and then you can't park there. It's really hard for, especially people or even elderly people that get out and have to slip and slide there and.
MinDOT does that though, don't they? The Main Street, that's a state highway.
No, we do. We have an agreement with
We
them.
do it.
Yeah.
Well, they
That's
do
an
it when they
agreement
come
we have
through,
with-
but they don't actually clean.
Yeah.
Right.
When we grade it, they grade it out from the sides and then blow it into the trucks.
But it is a state highway. But
Yeah.
that's just kind of an agreement we have with MinDOT then?
Yeah, we have a maintenance agreement with them where
Okay.
they contract with us. Every once in a while they get, it's kind of interesting because it's like we don't have to do it. So if you're going to get cheap on us or whatever,
I think it'd be really,
you know,
a really good thing for the city to do for the Main Street businesses. I mean, it gets the bulk of this stuff away. Yeah, they'll have to shovel a little
Yeah, I
bit,
know,
and
we
stuff like
talked
that.
about
But
that
it would,
before.
I think it would be, just noticing it today and talking to some of the owners there, I've talked to. a
well,
few
this is
of
the first time
Just-
I think I've been in this building with
Yeah.
that mess outside.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, that's about as bad as it's, you know, I thought about that when I was walking out of the city hall. It's
I
like,
suppose what
this is
happens
about
is
as bad as
The
it's
city guys
been,
go early.
you know,
and then
snow-wise,
the
on the
retail comes in
ground,
And then they push it
on the street.
Yeah.
You know, and it's just the nature when the
it's
snow
not clean.
came.
And
Bill
the
used to
winds,
talk about
yesterday
that.
was like this,
And the
today
winds.
is like this.
So who shovels east side sidewalks, east side park sidewalks?
We do,
So, I mean, they're using a little bobcat or
little
something?
bobcat,
So
yeah,
that could be the same thing that would go up and down Main
Right.
Street
Yeah.
pretty easily, because that's done very nicely, so why not do that for Main Street? And you're right, it is a mess and it does deter people from stopping. It's like, I
Right.
can't get out or I can't park there and
Yeah,
get
it's
out,
terrible.
so.
Well, I know our city guys go out
Yeah.
early, obviously, and then what happens is the retail people come in and push it out onto the street. That's all it gets there.
Well, but then there are a few, people in business doing that, and they're paid to do that before the city guys go out, so then we'd actually be taking their business away.
yeah, that would be the other thing is we'd be,
That's
Okay.
not really right. I mean, they can come in and do the final cleanup,
side of
but
it, yeah.
the bulk of the snow, like Brian said, I think, I agree, certainly agree with that. I'd like to see that, but as a business owner downtown, I guess I'd even, pay a little bit extra for that, but,
Maybe just keep it, the sides of the streets cleaner, so you can park there and get around, it won't be so slippery and uneven. I think it's the uneven, when the snow gets packed and it's uneven, and that's when you get.
well, there's pretty much no curb, there's no curb and gutter right now.
No.
It's just
Yeah.
packed snow.
but if I was a business owner, I'd want to get all that stuff off my sidewalk before the guys came and hauled off the road, so that my customers could get into my place.
But even if you have a private guy, who's to say that they're gonna get there all the time before
Right.
the city goes, and then they do it anyways, oh yeah, I got a private guy, the same thing that you're getting with your sidewalks.
Right.
Yeah, right.
The same issue, but
They're out there at 5 o'clock,
I
and
mean-
that's the time they got there.
I don't think that the 10 feet in front of somebody's business is gonna put any snow mover out of work. I mean, you're probably doing their back side or the back lot or whatever, but I'd really like to see if we could do it or have the guys do it one time and see how hard it was or how long extra did it take or what was it like. I don't know. It just would be really nice.
When, after this mess is cleaned up, or during this mess getting cleaned up, now we don't have curb and gutter most places anymore. It's snow. I mean, sometimes it's a huge pile of snow, sometimes it's just snow up to the curb and over the curb. But, years ago, they used to run with the big blower when they had time, this wasn't part of the main cleanup, but afterwards, they'd run with the big blower and clean right to the curb and blow it into a truck. And I think there's any possibility of going back to do that. I haven't done that.
Well, they
for a
can,
long,
yeah, we can
long
look at
time.
anything.
Yeah.
Because ideally, they'd like to have it off the road too.
Yeah.
And once it starts melting in the spring, you want the water to run off into
Right.
the storm sewer.
And we're gonna get warm weather.
It will come.
It'll come.
It always
You don't
does.
believe me, Jeff, but.
It always
will.
does.
Okay, any other questions on the city manager newsletter?
How about the the city works or city parks job, any applications,
Yeah,
anything
my
going on that?
understanding is there's
We
3
got
so far.
3?
Yep.
Okay,
So through the affirmative action process, what happens is they all go to Sandy, and then she has to vet them out, and once I see them, I won't know whether they're male, female, black, white, whatever. That's the process that we use, and then we'll rank them and go from there. But yeah, it sounds like there's a few, which is good.
Is it still open?
It's still open. I think we're taking them until what, the beginning of
A
March.
week from Friday.
Yeah, so
Okay.
we'll see.
okay.
I guess I would like to comment about the auditors. I know, the auditors
Oh, yeah.
are in town this week or last week or whenever it is. I talked with an auditor today with the standard questions about to the mayor, and I just wanted to, thank you, for your hard work. They specifically said that they were wonderful to work with, and, thank you.
Team effort.
Yeah, Whitney did
Yeah.
a wonderful job in the team, and she wasn't nervous at all.
Well, good. Good. Okay, so we need to set the board of review for April 4th. I will make a motion to set the board of review for April 4th, 2022 at 5:15 right here.
I'll second.
Sheldon, are you and I the only ones
Yep.
current?
Yep.
That you guys are the
We
only.
have to have at least 2, right?
One.
Just one?
I think we
Yeah.
have to just have one, yeah. But we're both up in
Till
2 years.
2024.
Yeah.
But, okay. So this list is me saying that you're current, that means that we're not.
Yeah,
What you're saying?
exactly,
We need to
right.
get-
It
And
doesn't
it's
take long
The
to do it
information.
online.
It's
to go
pretty
online
easy.
To do it, yeah, just to
Yeah,
get
no,
that
I
window
just-
and
I can't
the
remember.
code and.
Yeah, right. They usually send a link or something,
Yep.
don't they?
How do you get
It
the?
only takes 15,
You
20
have to
minutes.
reply, I
Done.
think, to
You do it online.
Mr. Swanson,
Yeah.
and they'll
Oh,
send you
great,
the access.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
Chad will
he
send
should
that to
give us the
you.
information
or
on
whatever
the
his name is, not
website.
Chad.
or
Craig.
line,
Okay.
Craig?
to do that.
Craig will send them the link, right? That's what he did for me, I think.
Yeah, he's probably not too anxious because we've got 2 that are 24, so.
Well, it'd just be nice to
Yeah,
get
right.
it updated. It's pretty simple.
Yep. Okay, so I made that a motion.
A second, or do we already have a second?
And I second.
Kim.
Kim seconded.
Okay, any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Carried. And we have informational item, news releases from the police department. What is going on, chief? Holy cow.
It was a busy week.
It was a busy week. Oh. I don't remember reading a news release before, and now we had 2 of them in a couple days.
Nobody seriously injured on the officer that was drugged for a bit?
That officer is still out on work comp, pending diagnosis, figure out how serious the injury is.
Wow.
Wow. It's crazy.
But you got him. You got all the
Got the bad people.
the bad ones. Good deal. Thank you, chief, for doing that. Anything else come before the council? Great. Happy Tuesday, right?